Hey guys, and welcome back to another sport creation video and the latest weekly request as voted by you guys on the last one. Today we are making the Desert Titan from ARK Extinction. And I'm going to go ahead and say this very early. I am not proud of this creation, but I wanted to share it because first of all, you know, I can't just have a weekly request and nothing, but also second of all, this shows as a good demonstration or a good example that I can't make everything, not everything can be made, and mainly I feel like a lot of people believe or seem to think that I can just make anything anytime, and some are intimidated by that fact. I kind of want to just have this video included, just like among all the other ones, as a little example that no, I can't do everything, no one can. And hopefully it, in a way, inspires you, like, oh, maybe I can do it better, maybe you can, you know? If you get what I mean. But anyway, so, as for why this creation was such a challenge, so, I knew straight up it'd be a challenge due to the very large flat wings, or like these sails, or, you know, like a big manta kind of form, and that on its own is typically a bit of a struggle in sport, because animations of thing, clipping, shading, textures, etc, like it kind of goes funky in all sorts of different ways, as when it tries to texture, the texture is normally very spread, very muddy and just really wrong looking, very glitchy looking. The animations tend to clip and jut around and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff, and it's, you know, you can't stack things on top of each other unless you have a particular mod and all that kind of stuff. So typically large flat creatures don't work anyway. But sometimes, you know, I give it a go, sometimes it works out quite nicely, and that's why I wanted to do this one here. When it came to making large flat wings, the parts I wanted just simply did not work, and we'll get into that when we get to that point in the video. Currently, or in fact here we are now. So that particular piece there, I was heavily relying on that single piece to get the general overall shape, it being in such a way that isn't made out of like multiple different parts, that way the textures were at least consistent. And all that kind of stuff, and in the end, it just wasn't good enough. So when it came to the head we've already made now, overall I quite like it. It's a little bit more on the pre-made side instead of the custom side than I would have liked. I would like to have added a little bit more to it. But in the stage, I was aware that I'd have to do a lot for the wings, not to mention all the various things under the belly and under the Titan itself. Therefore, you know, trying to budget my complexity a little bit, not going too ham on the face. Especially certain pieces like the death spikes from Creepy and Cute, those alone, you know, suffice for the teeth. Among other pieces for like the pink around the back of the jaw, the little pinky things behind the jaw, little sea creature kind of like feeler thingies, I'm not sure what you call them, but all those kind of things. I had all that in place and I was happy with that. When it came to the wings, I had to use a limb for it instead of the one single part. So the limb is good because it means that it will now actually have a chance of animating. It will kind of sway and flow and hopefully not clip too badly. But then the actual membrane itself, as always, that is the hardest part there because there just aren't very many flat pieces in sport. You can stack and stack and stack, but when you stack a lot of pieces very closely and, you know, in conjunction with each other, quite often it will clip or look bad, and the when it renders, well, I have that really frustrating black shadowy render glitch that's just no one, like I'm sure a lot of you have seen that before, no one likes it. It's a really big nuisance. So I ended up using these spheres. I flattened the spheres because those would provide the largest, thinnest surface area. They were the closest to what I'd wanted. Even though, you know, the texture would have been a little bit flat, it was the closest I could obtain with what I currently have in the sport. So that's good enough on its own. What I could do then is use a couple more parts later on, such as the long, thin bladed parts to kind of just, you know, break up how flat it looked. Of course, here I'm also including the little like jet-like things at the bottom of the wings, like fun little jet things that looks like the mana wolves or the managarms have. And so that's probably my favourite part of the creation. These little jets here and the final animation are probably my favourite parts of this creation in general. So the little jets I was happy with just because they seem to have worked out quite nicely. I was able to add a bit of a glow in as well. The glow wasn't too bad. I overall liked how it came out. Although the white spheres from the actual effect part persist in the textured and rendering and such, which is very annoying, but hey, what can you do? So in the final version of this, you will see the giant white spheres, despite having the invisible limbs, you know, the forced invisible limbs mod enabled. It doesn't always affect the effect parts. So again, just a bit of a, you know, tough for me scenario. At this stage now, I'm kind of just bulking out the thicker part of the wings, again, trying to make it look less flat, less boring, because at the moment it's just, you know, a very large, weird surface. So I'm adding in these different textured or textureless parts here to add a bit of mass. I'm also, of course, adding all of the little, I'm not sure the right word here for it is, little holes, I guess, that kind of around the base of the wing. The gill-like pieces as well coming around the neck. I feel like this creature has a lot of, like, really heavy underwater aquatic vibes. In fact, hey, that's a point. I've yet to see how these are in the other maps in the game. Maybe it can be underwater. I don't know, but anyway, it's got all these underwater kind of features, which is why I'm using terms like gills, like suckers, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully it makes some sense. It also has these little tentacle things. They weren't really tentacles, but again, spore being spore was the closest thing I can obtain. They were more like seaweed, actually. The little bits underneath had like a very much of a seaweed texture, which again isn't something that I can really do in spore. I could use the grass parts, but that would have looked wrong. It just wouldn't have been the right color or anything. At this point now, I'm utilising a little bit more of the smoother limb to try and, again, just add a bit more flesh, make it so that things look a lot less slapped on and that the body itself, the rib cage or whatever, like just has a little bit more to it as opposed to just, you know, no muscle. So it's a little thing I like to do. I feel like it adds just more to the creation, just having those very small individual pieces of just flesh, all that kind of stuff. And here, I'm trying to make the little jet pieces around the wings kind of, again, flow a bit more into the wings. Again, so it doesn't, you know, it doesn't look slapped on, no abrupt end to it. Kind of transitions nicely into the rest of the skin, all that kind of stuff. Making the back now a little bit heavy as well, especially as in the creature itself, the back is quite heavy. That being another thing, actually, when it came to creating this, was I was very limited on references. I had to spawn one in-game, and even then it had the saddle equipped. So I wasn't willing to spawn a wild one. So again, when it came to references, I kind of struggled when it came to the back of the head, the neck, and the actual back of the creature, because, again, I've just had a very, very hard time dealing with this one. The tail I quite liked. The tail was about the right, you know, the right proportions. It was animating quite like how I wanted it to, like a little bit flexible, but a little bit stiff. It had the thin parts as well, you know, I managed to capture that bit, so hooray, hurrah. And of course, adding a couple of the little flipper-like pieces that I'd imagine, you know, protruding from where the legs could be if it had legs, just like in that general hip-like area. Kind of adjusting the jets now so they actually make a little bit more sense. At this stage here, you can see now that the creature has suddenly turned blue. So I'd spent about, I don't even know how long, I spent time trying to figure out the colour scheme for this. As the colour scheme as well was an entirely different matter altogether. Once I figured out the colour scheme, I realised I was lacking the black and purple, the element, you know, the element imbued augmented areas, and so I tried to just chuck a bit of those in. And yeah, it was a bit annoying as well because the black just looked extremely abrupt and there wasn't really any way I could transition it into the rest of the creature. Overall, this creature was just a massive challenge. I've had challenges before, I've made creatures not proud of in the past, but I honestly think this one right here about tops my least favourite creation. Maybe I'm being too harsh on myself, but I was just extremely unsatisfied, and it's like I said earlier at the beginning of the video. I didn't want to just scrap it because one, you know, it was voted for, I needed to make it, and two, and it goes to show that, you know, they're not always hits. Every now and then I get some, you know, pretty critical misses. Now then, on a lighter note, before we check out the final version of the creature, let's look at the current, so the latest weekly request poll. So, I have re-included the Spinosaurus Cod hybrid, as not only was that the second highest voted last week, but you guys expressed quite a bit of interest for it as well. So I'm going to give you guys another chance at that one. And after that, we had quite an interesting amount of hybrids. I went by the highest voted comments just to see how it would go out. So, okay, normally I'd choose like a variety of things, but just this time I chose the highest comments. And in the end, we got a Xenomorph Indominus, a Grox Xenomorph, a Chinese Dragon Jowie, and a Jowie Titan. I hope you like the doodles there for reference, so you got like a bit of an idea of how they totally will not look like. So there's the latest bunch. Don't worry, the Titan will look a lot more interesting if you vote for it. It won't just be that. So I hope you enjoy that. As always, top right hand corner, go ahead and vote, and I'll make that to next week. And then of course we move on to the final result of our creature. Like I said, even though I enabled the forced invisible limbs mod, so you can see that now all the frames and such have disappeared, the white orbs are still there, and I just can't do anything about it. The textures, they're just very muddy, very blocky. Again, not really a big fan of it, but again, you know, kind of tried my best here. I really did. The biggest thing I noticed with this creature was it was very, very iridescent. And iridescent is just not a thing you can do in Spore. You just cannot do it in Spore. I was almost tempted to go ahead and just make this in ZBrush instead, but I wouldn't have enough time to bring it out today. Just because the textures alone are just so heavy. There's so many textures. It's basically, like, if you look very, very closely at certain portions of the Desert Titan, it's almost like a rainbow. Now, saying that, I guess when it comes to the final finish, with all the colours and renders, and of course the shaders enabled, it doesn't look too bad. It does not look too bad. I think I can do better. I think a lot of people can do better than this. Again, perhaps I'm just being too critical to myself. But at the same time though, I don't know, I'm just not satisfied by it. But I am very curious to know what you guys think, and in particular, what you think could be done to improve it if you think anything is wrong. Like I said, the colours were a major issue. Large flat surfaces, textures, animations, all these kind of things, all over the place. It was all just a lot of things that Spore is not very good at. But again, maybe I'm missing something. So like I said, I'd really love to know what you guys think about this one. Now then, as always, thank you all very much for watching. Do vote on the next creation on the top right hand corner. Keep those suggestions coming in, and as always, I will see you all next time. Cheers.